16 minutes past 6. Borrowing costs for the Italian government have reached a new record high, with investors fearing the state of the country's finances. Simon Jack has more on that. Simon, good morning.
Good morning to you, Sarah. Yes, a crunch vote in the Italian Parliament today over massive economic reforms to tackle Italy's €1.9 trillion debt mountain. Yesterday, Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi took to the social networking site Facebook to deny rumours he was standing down. Shares in Milan rose sharply in the morning on those murmurings before falling back following his announcement that he's staying put, at least for now. Now, while that was happening, the interest rate on a 10-year Italian government bond leapt to a Euro-era high of 6.67%, very closely approaching the 7% mark, which tipped the likes of Ireland, Greece and Portugal into bailout territory. Well, on the line from Leeds is Giuseppe Fontana, Professor of Monetary Economics at Leeds Business School, and here in the studio, Alpesh Patel, Principal at Prithvinian Partners. Good morning to you both. Giuseppe first. We've known about Italy's debt problems for some time. What is bringing things to a head at the moment? Is this market-led?
Good morning, Simon.
Good morning.
Well, it was Keynes that said that if you owe the bank £1,000, then you have a problem. If you owe a bank £1 million, then the bank has a problem. As you said, the Italian government debt is around 120% of GDP. That is a very high level of debt by any standard. So creditors are now really worried that Italy is unable to pay back his own debt.
Italy's a very rich country in many ways. It's got a huge private sector, fashion, tourism, a thriving car industry. It's not Portugal, is it? How much trouble is it really in?
Well, certainly Italy is an important country, has a lot of strength in its own economy. Well, the problem, as I said, is that the level of government debt is quite high, and has been high for a very long time, and the ownership has changed over time. And creditors are really worried that the Italian is not going to pay debt. And I think the issue goes back really how Italy can reduce the government debt. And I think there are two ways to reduce. Well, there is the first standard way that you can reduce the level of debt, or you can increase the level of GDP. And I think creditors are trying to pass that message to the Italian government to say, look, you really need to look at these issues and try to solve the high level of debt that you have in your own country.
Would Silvio Berlusconi going sooner rather than later be a good thing, or would it be too disruptive at a delicate time? Well,
personally, I believe that the issue is not who is going to to lead the Italian government. The issue is how Italy is going to face the challenges it has to face. That basically this high level of government debt. If the people believe, and the financial market believe, that the problem is Berlusconi, that's fine. But that's, I believe, is only the first step. So if you want the necessary step to solve the issues, then the next step is whoever is going to head the Italian government has to respond to those challenges. I don't think it's just a question of the Prime Minister, it's a question of the entire Italian government that has to realize that there are a serious issue and then need to solve that issue.
And just one final thought, would a caretaker government have the sort of mandate required to push through the kind of austerity plans or the radical reforms that you say are necessary?
Well, to be honest, I have to say, personally, I'm really worried about this talk of austerity measures. Austerity measures are not the solution for this country, are not the solution for Italy. Usually the government debt is measured as in relative term to GDP. And what austerity measures usually do, they reduce the level of GDP, so they increase actually the level of government debt. So I'm really worried that in order to solve this problem of debt, Italy is embracing this idea of cutting. You really need to increase growth in order to solve that problem.
All right, Alpesh Patel, bring you in now. What is 7% we keep talking about as being the magic number? Why is that in terms of Italian government interest rates?
Well, to one extent, I think 7% is a problem, not just because, as you say, it's been the tipping point for other governments in terms of being unaffordable for them to service their debt, but it's not a high enough number to encourage institutions to own Italian debt. They get to a point where the market for buying debt of any country fails when you're concerned not about them being able to pay the 7% or compensate you adequately for the risk you're taking, but you're just not sure they're going to ever be able to pay you, and that's the fear at the moment with the Italians. I think it's an unfounded fear, but that doesn't matter with the markets. It becomes self-fulfilling if people aren't willing to pay the debt.
Let me ask the same question. Berlusconi going, good thing or bad thing, or too disruptive right now?
Well, at the moment, it looks like the tipping point is that it's disruptive for him to stay. It seems to take the focus away, and I think it'll make the institutions and the markets feel a little bit better for a short period of time, worry to go, but it doesn't solve the underlying problem. So unfortunately for him, we've got to the stage now where it will make things in the short term look better, but they won't actually be better.
In the meantime, the EFSF, the bailout fund, struggled to raise €3 billion to cover some of the Irish costs yesterday. Given the fact that this is the, if you like, the bazooka which is going to sort out all the problems in Europe, that's not a very good sign.
Yeah, it's not a very good sign, given that it's supposed to be AAA rated. So much for the ratings. And given that they had problems, would you really want Italian debt even if you were getting paid 10%, given that there's a lot of alternatives out there, other sovereign debt that you could own for maybe a couple of percentage points less, but a heck of a lot nicer sleepful nights.
Okay, well, let's thank you very much for that, Alpesh. Let's step away from Europe briefly and move closer to home. The housing market, in fact, here, where sales and new buyer inquiries edged up